Good afternoon, everyone. I'm not going to try and take as much of your time as I can, so we'll get right into it. You may have noticed throughout the day that the real power of Office 365 is not the individual apps themselves, but the integrations between them, and that's what I'd like to talk about here. But before we talk about the benefits of combining these tools, I think it would be beneficial to discuss what I mean when I say automation. So I'm using a very wide definition of the term here, which is anything an employee does, which is now done or assisted by software solution. This covers everything from a line of business application to an individual user's Outlook rule. So anytime we want to save, modify, move, share, or analyze data, we can do this with a pen and paper, like in the Nathaniel's meeting notes example, with electronic documents and email, or with automation. As we've seen, Flow can be leveraged by users to automate parts of their individual processes. But other than that, automation in non-IT segments has traditionally been done with custom software solutions or off-the-shelf products with costly customizations and configurations. These solutions meet a specific set of needs, automate a specific set of processes, and are generally not very extendable or reusable beyond these. Now, many big line business applications now come with a workflow system built in, but these are still limited to working with the data that the solution holds. On the other hand, automation has been a staple of IT administration for years. I would wager that none of you manually install Windows, map printers and network drives, or configure user signatures. And the difference is, we have IT administration platforms that can be deployed to solve a wide range of problems and to meet a wide range of needs. So discrete solutions each require a complete back-end technology and support stack, where platforms deploy this once and allow for solutions to be built on top. So Office 365 is not a set of solutions, but a toolkit of interconnected components which together create a platform for automating business processes. So instead of looking at individual apps, let's look at 365 from a different viewpoint, with a software development view. So here we have some of the fundamental components of a software system. We have a database for storing information, an interface for users to access and manipulate that information, identity management for access control, some kind of logic engine to manipulate the data and generate notifications or trigger notifications, and an outbound communication method to deliver those notifications. Now, a modern software product might use a web interface or a website for the user interface, SQL for the database, .NET code for the logic engine, and hopefully an integration with a third-party identity provider via SAML or similar, although we do see homebrew IDAM solutions a lot more than we would like. So in this theoretical implementation, each of these modules would therefore represent a whole host of unique challenges, which would require a specialist or even a team of professionals to design, implement, and maintain. Consider just the web interface. We've got DNS and domain name management. You've got performance and scalability, security, hosting, certificates, log, and health monitoring. The list goes on and on. Now, we've seen that Power Apps is basically a customizable front end for Office 365 data and services. So if we were to leverage Power Apps as our user interface, all of this complexity and expense disappears. You configure your Power App and the job is done. There's no underlying services set up and no ongoing maintenance. The same can be said for replacing our SQL database for SharePoint lists, for replacing SAML for 365's native Azure AD integration, and replacing our .NET code for flows. As you probably guessed, Exchange Online makes it quite the notification system. Now, obviously, what's possible with SharePoint lists and flows is a far cry from what's possible with SQL and .NET code. But the simplicity of these components is also their greatest strength. Remember, we're not talking about replacing traditional software development, but rather increasing the scope of the processes that are now feasible to automate. explain. So, software development costs typically increase exponentially with complexity. Traditional software development has always been so expensive, it's only appropriate for high-impact projects. The high initial costs mean that you have to be very careful to ensure that the project meets your needs, and as many needs as possible. I'm talking about a major undertaking. Multi-departmental business transforming projects, while the potential benefits are almost unlimited, but failure is incredibly costly. At the other end of the scale, we have end-user automation, like the aforementioned Outlook rules. Very low cost, low impact automations implemented and maintained by single users. Now with the addition of Flow, this type of automation is extended much further and covers a much wider range of use cases. But there's still quite a void here. Even when we factor in using Microsoft Azure as a development environment, greatly reducing the initial cost of high impact development, there's a lot of missed opportunity here in the middle of the graph. Now this is where we would expect to find automations that benefit small groups of users or that automate one or two distinct business processes. In our experience, this has often been filling the gap left by an existing line of business application. So you may have a CRM solution that lacks a customer onboarding module or an HR product without employee journey tracking. There are significant efficiency gains to be made in this area, but no one automation is worth the high cost of fully fledged development. And this is the target of applying a Platform+Agile approach to Office 365. So that's Platform+Agile, as in a development platform combined with an agile approach to software development. Now, unfortunately, I can't claim credit for that phrase, as it can't, oh, sorry, I missed the slide there. Office 365 is a development platform. So that phrase comes from Dr. Steve Hodgkinson, who is the CIO of the Victorian Department of Health and Human Services. In transforming that department's approach to IT projects, he coined the phrase Platform+Agile, and I think it perfectly sums up what we're talking about here with Office 365. Now, Microsoft profiled Dr. Hodgkinson in their digital transformation series, and I'd like to share a couple of quotes from that article. Platform+Agile says that you stop treating each new business system as an independent event. Instead, we make strategic decisions about platforms that we use as the basic environment to build business systems, and then reuse those platforms. That way, we're starting 90% of the way up the stack. So, in not so many words, a reusable and adaptable platform with decreased development costs. Here's another. If you're smart about how you use these products, you can get up a minimum viable product pretty quickly at low cost with low risk. Compare that to projects where you might go 12 to 18 months or multiple years and deliver nothing more than design and procurement documents. Platform+Agile delivers a working minimum viable product in 3 to 6 months. Again, he's talking about Microsoft Azure as the platform here. With the limited scope and complexity of tools in 365, we would estimate 1 to 2 weeks to a minimum viable product. And I've got one more for you. You can only do that if you're empowered by the knowledge of what your platforms can do, which means you've got to have people who know the platforms, know what they're good for, and know what works. When you put a person like that together with a business user, they very quickly work out what a minimum viable product would be. So, in order to fully realize the advantages of this approach, you need to be working with an experienced and knowledgeable developer. Incidentally, Nathaniel and I will be available for questions after the presentation. Right, let's have an example. We had a customer come to us frustrated with their lack of progress on what they considered to be a very simple solution. They had already spent a considerable amount of time and money with the software developer, but the results were not meeting their expectations. They could foresee numerous expensive iterations of the product before they would see any benefit. And indeed, we also thought it was a simple solution. First, they wanted a master list of milestones, achievements, or skills that could differ by job role, and each one would have its own success criteria. A way to track progress through this list for each employee using the system. A facility for employees to request a review, confirming they've met the success criteria, a way for their manager or assigned approver to complete the review and approve or deny the request, and finally a way for the employees to track their own progress. Unfortunately for our customer, their software developer had opted for the full web SQL homebrew IDAM solution we discussed earlier. And as I hope you now agree, this is they're perfectly suited for development in 365. So we have the same pieces of the puzzle that we had before, although this time we opted to augment the capabilities of Flow with the Microsoft Graph, a REST API capable of connecting with all of the other services of Office 365. Now, we also really like the Graph to do initial and repeatable setups of SharePoint, but that's a different story. So let's look at how we use each one of these components to meet the customer's requirements. First, groups and Azure AD we use to define both approver and employee roles. Graph was then used to create these groups and configure SharePoint appropriately. Remember, we need different lists per job role and user, so the group memberships dictate which lists are created. SharePoint lists are created with the master achievements, which the customer can then populate themselves, as well as job employee-specific achievement data. A Power-Up was created to facilitate access by employees to the lists, and it also allows for approval requests to be entered. Access to this Power-Up is controlled by the same groups in Azure AD as we discussed earlier. Any update to SharePoint lists then triggers Flow. And after verifying all information is correct and present, it sends approval emails to the relevant approvers. The approvers receive what Microsoft calls an options email, which is basically a number of embedded hyperlinks in an email, so the request can either be approved or denied right from within Outlook. That approve or deny option then goes back into Flow, where it updates the SharePoint lists and sends email notifications as required. And that's it. A single application experience for the users built on the integration of multiple Office 365 services. And I think it's important to note here that with the exception of the optional graph components, all of this work, data, and authentication is happening right within the customer's own tenancy. So this solution will continue to run with or without the involvement of all tasks. All of the authentication is leveraging the existing role-based access technologies they already have, and all the data will always be available in the customer's SharePoint lists, and they'll have complete control over it. So all in all, Platform+Agile development in Office 365 offers a set of advantages you just won't find anywhere else, and I believe will truly unlock the potential of Office 365. Thank you.